future.
There are no people.
There are no people in the future.
No people at all.
There are no people in the future.
Where did all my people go?
There are no people in the future.
Let me try my people call. Where are all my people? Where are all my people? I guess I'll fly away now.
Hey everybody, welcome. It is Monday, November 7th, 2022. Yes, that is the question on this election day eve. Where are all my people? We put out the people call. The question is, will they show? Yes, indeed. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out to Coop Live. This is Kevin Mahoney, creator and founder of Raging Chicken. On Out to Coop Live, we talk to progressives, activists, and troublemakers of all sorts, right from our own backyards from across the country. And tonight, the stakes couldn't be higher on election eve, these midterms. Whew. Yes, indeed. So tonight we're going to do a little kind of preview, hear what's on your mind, talk a little, see where things are, get a sense of the room, so to speak. And then this Friday, you can also join us, as usual, for our Friday Politics Roundup, where we break down the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. You can also check out our once or twice monthly The Wednesday Show with Cyril Michaleko. Cyril, of course, is the editor-in-chief of the Bucks County Beacon. And, we try to get together once in a while to drill down into Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and international politics. You can get all our shows by subscribing to our podcast on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. You can help support this show by becoming a patron for as little as $5 a month. Simply head on over to patreon.com/rcpress. You can help out the show right now by heading over to our YouTube channel if you're not there already. Smash that subscribe button, like the stream for this show, and hit that notification bell so you'll know every time we go live. And if you're a podcast listener, wherever you get your podcasts, you get them on kind of Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, you get a podcatcher that you use Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you're going to find them. Make sure you leave us that 5-star review. Like, let other people know what you like about the show. The more that you give us those reviews, you like this stream, that helps other people find this show, right? And, support the amazing work that people in our communities are doing. For more PA Progressive Talk, tune into the Rick Smith Show's live stream at 9 p.m. Eastern on his YouTube channel, Twitter, Facebook. Well, look, wherever you find your streams, you're going to find Rick. Head on over to thericksmithshow.com for the latest across all his platforms. And as election season comes to a close, man, good time to catch up on every last episode of the Sisters of the Night Caucus podcast. The amazing PA women stirring the political cauldron behind this podcast rock the house. And they know where the bodies are buried. Make sure to follow them on Twitter at The Night Caucus. That's at The Night Caucus on Twitter. And subscribe to their podcast on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcast. And for all you gamers out there, excuse me, man, I don't know what's going on with me tonight. For all you gamers out there, head on and check out the Game In. The Game In with 2 N's. The Game In is a Quakertown-based black family-owned gaming store. They're friends of the show. They've got everything for retro N64s, the latest consoles, video games for all platforms, collectibles, action figures, Funko Pops, walls of Funko Pops. And kids get discounts when they get A's on their report card. You can't beat that. Check them out on their Facebook page. Follow them on Twitter at The Game In. That's with 2 N's. If you got a question about a game or you're looking for something hard to get, shoot them a message or drop them an email at thegameinpa@gmail.com. Sorry about that, Emily. Clock touching, yeah, indeed. Special shout out goes to Jonathan Mann, who wrote our intro song, There Are No People in the Future. Check out all his great stuff on his YouTube page and follow him on Twitter at SongAdayMan. That's at SongAdayMan on Twitter. And look, don't let Paul Martino and his oligarch friends buy our schools and push extremist politics in our community. Raging Chicken has teamed up with Levelfield to launch a truly community-rooted PAC to invest in organizing, supporting local and statewide progressive candidates, and unmasking the toxic organizations injecting our communities with right-wing extremism. We're putting small dollar donations to work to beat back the power of big money. You get more information and drop your donation at ragingchicken.levelfield.net. And look, tomorrow's election day. After election day, we got to get back to the organizing in our communities, focus on what's happening in our school boards, and the kind of like completely oversized influence that a few big billionaires are happening on everything from our school curriculum to the safety to our children. We got to make sure that we got to beat that back. So today's show, yes, it is Election Day Eve, and that is pretty much what we're going to be talking about tonight. And I'm really curious to hear what's going on in your mind, what's been happening in your neck of the woods. I know people have been doing a ton of work. And I say, here I go again. I don't know what my problem is. I know what my problem is. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. That's what my problem is. I happen to have a well-timed, or I'm being very sarcastic, very not well-timed sickness grabbed me last week. So I got a nasty fever on Thursday that kind of sidelined me for a couple days, and it kind of then went to a bunch of doctor's visits. It was basically a recurrence of this kind of, I don't know, crazy thing that I got over the summer, which is still kind of unclear what all the stuff that was going on. And so whatever. So, it's been just a bit of, well, whatever, a weird kind of closeout to the lead up to this weekend. But fortunately, lots of folks in our community did not get sidelined this weekend. The pictures were rolling across social media. Amazing work being done by the Gwen Stoltz campaign folks. Saw them kind of like out and about when I was kind of dropping off something, picking up a prescription, shooting to the store to pick up some groceries. I saw folks out there with, the Gwen Stoltz team is doing a bang up job in our community. Everywhere I go, as I head north out of my town, I see the signs for Jim Miller in the 145th. Gwen Stoltz is in the 143rd. I see signs for Jim Miller in the 145th. I was just talking to a guy who lives around the corner in me. Saw him today and out walking my dog, but we just start talking to each other. And, there's this level of concern, and there's this level of concern that's out there. And the one thing I do have to say is, there's been, people out there campaigning for progressive candidates, for Democrats, in ways that I have never seen before. And you've heard the complaint, if you listen to the show for any length of time, you've heard this complaint coming from this sector for quite some time, that there has just not been the on-the-ground organizing happening in our communities. Now, that changed dramatically with the extremists invading our school boards. That really began turning things around. More people got involved, and it wasn't, of course, here just in Bucks County. It was happening in Berks County. It was happening in Lehigh County. It was happening all over the state and across the country. I mean, this is part of a right-wing strategy, as we've, had folks on this show to kind of unpack and to show and to kind of say, this is what's going on. But, and at least in my neck of the woods, where the Democrats had traditionally just kind of abandoned things and just said, oh, well, there's not a whole lot we could do there. Parents and community groups and local chapters of local Democratic Party chapters, Democratic Party clubs, really groups of Democrats that just happen to know each other, getting together to do this organizing. They've been showing up and doing a bang up job. You've got, and some of that is, to do with the candidates. I've been nothing but impressed with the work that Gwen Stoltz has been doing. She is really a tremendous candidate, and I think that if anybody has got a shot to win in the 143rd, it's her and her team, who are just absolutely outstanding. It's refreshing to have a candidate who's really homegrown, right? Somebody that wasn't just tapped on the shoulder from some kind of Democratic Party consultant group, but has actually kind of been working in party politics for quite some time, is rooted in the community, has her kids in the community, works in the community, and is not afraid to say that she's going to stand up for her community. Stand up for, kind of basic, bodily autonomy for women, for example. I mean, to stand up against the extremism in our schools, and not be afraid to talk about it. And at the same time, being firmly committed at really what it seems to me at her core, to doing the best job possible for all of us. she's an outstanding candidate, and it's just I am really really have got my fingers crossed for her. Jim Miller's been, starting from, hey, wait, nobody's running in this committee? What are you kidding me? And jumping in the campaign, doing a writing campaign to get on the ballot, and then winning that, and going on to run an amazing campaign. So that's all good. The other thing that, we had Mark Pinsley on the show before, and Mark Pinsley, of course, is running in the PA Senate District, the 16th Senate District, which, used to be just up in kind of Lehigh County, but now kind of dipped down into my neck of the woods down in Bucks County. And Mark Pinsley has been doing a bang up job as a Lehigh County commissioner. They saved like $7 million. They saved taxpayers for basically finding out like, oh my God, we're getting ripped off by our medical insurance provider. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to rebid the contract and we're going to save people money. Everything from like that, this kind of corporate bloat that was kind of milking taxpayers dry. Pinsley's done the job. And he's going up against this guy, Jared Coleman, who's, another one of these Jeffrey Yass billionaire-backed school board extremist. Found his way onto the Parkland School Board to make a name of himself, to be disruptive up there. His sole funder, practically speaking, is Jeffrey Yass and Jeffrey Yass's associated organizations. So this is kind of what we've got to do. Emily says, yeah, got to get out the vote for Jim Miller tonight. Get out the vote call for Jim Miller tonight. That's fantastic, Emily. Mark Pinsley has ads on YouTube. Yes, he does. I got to actually call from Mark Pinsley's campaign earlier today and yesterday. It's been really good to see. And here we are. It's decision time. There is nothing more to do but just kind of get out the vote. I'll make another confession. If first confession was like whatever, I got ill and I'm like exhausted from it. But the second one is that I had to turn off some kind of social media over the past couple days just because I needed the spin factor has been so kind of off the charts that I needed just to kind of like read. So I read articles and I just kind of read news sources and things like this, but not the back and forth on social media. That was a good break. But as I'm kind of, getting ready to spend the day tomorrow at my polling place, I just, take a dip back into the news and, it's thing. I just got, Kim Kelly. She does a fantastic book. I actually got her book right next to me right here in my thing. It's Fight Like Hell. Her book is right next to, who sits on my desk. It's Kim Kelly, right? It is Daisy Pitkin. It is The Anglers. This is an Uprising, right? And last one, Smoking Typewriters. How about that? Right, so if you want to know, I don't even know why I'm showing all this stuff, but that's what I'm doing. But anyways, Kim Kelly, I did check into Twitter today, and she said, you know what, I requested a mail-in ballot, got concerned about it, went down to City Hall to get it fixed, and saw this, and this is what I saw. And she posted a picture of, these huge lines outside of City Hall because there's been, these back and forth lawsuits over whether they're going to count the ballots that are dated incorrectly, or that are not signed on the outside envelope, or things like this. And a court stepped in and said, no, you can count them, or they can get fixed there. And now you got like different counties that are calling people who've sent in their mail-in ballots and say, hey, look, there's a problem, you didn't do X, Y, or Z, that you can come down here, show proof of identification and all that kind of stuff, and you can fix your ballot, right, to make sure it gets counted. And then that's been back and forth in terms of legal ballots or legal battles. And tonight, the Philly voters were lined up at City Hall to make sure their ballots got fixed. And they had to shut the doors, and they had to kind of say, well, you got to come back tomorrow. It's pretty nasty. And if you look at some of the people that were making errors apparently on their ballot, it included people like, oh, I don't know, Comcast CEO Brian Roberts, right? So you're not talking about just Democrats, right? You're talking about, people from across the spectrum who made some kind of like diddly little error. Like, even though you get a postmark on your thing, postmark on your ballot, or it's got to be put in a drop box before election day, you still got to jump through all these tiny little hoops. And if there's one of those things wrong, they're saying the Republicans have been arguing that no, you shouldn't count that, and that's been back and forth into the courts. Now you got the Fetterman campaign today, who's now suing or put together a lawsuit, and I guess if I read this correctly, they were successful in that lawsuit to basically make sure that I'm going to try to make sure I'm getting this right. Was successful in making sure that people are going to be able to get their ballots fixed ahead of the end of tomorrow. But it's like it's all over the place, and you gotta say, this is the strategy, right? I mean, the strategy is to make it as chaotic as possible, so people throw up their hands and are like, the whole system is messed up, and so I'm just not going to participate. Well, this is like one of these. This is like one of these moments where you're like, yeah, that's just not good enough this time around. Now, there is no like room for luxury at this point. Right. And because right now we've already seen, kind of women's, bodily autonomy ripped away from them this summer through the Supreme Court decisions. We've seen that, that the right wing is willing to kind of like pursue every kind of voter disenfranchisement mechanism they can, both direct and indirect, in order to kind of usher in one party rule in a two-stage move. Right, stage number one is this midterms, which is to take over the House and the Senate, and step two is 2024. Or I should also say part of step one is also take over state houses, take over, increase the number of right-wing extremists in the state legislators. Then in step two is to, elect an extremist in the president of the United States, to the point where we're not going to, it'll be like effectively one-party rule. And, there's so much at stake. There's just so much at stake. And I don't know about you, but I don't really have a good sense one way or the other where things go. If I look at the polls, right now, say for example, you've got like Real Clear Politics. If you look at the average of the polls, they're looking at they're calling it a toss-up in the PA Senate race between Oz and Fetterman. Now, Fetterman was, had a huge lead on Oz until two things happened. Number one, he had a stroke, right? But look, having a stroke by itself, that doesn't account for anything. It's what the other side does with that, right? And of course, they've taken that and they've kind of manipulated it. They used all their, scare politics they possibly could in order to try to say Fetterman's not unfit for the job, even though all his doctors say otherwise. But then the other side of it is just like, it's a blitz of just like bottomless pockets of negative advertising and an entire media infrastructure that doesn't need mainstream media in order to reach its base voters, in order to keep them ramped up, right? So, you got Fetterman, who was, looked like he was in a very comfortable position. Now he's down to, technically, if you look at the Real Clear Politics average in their polls, it's got Oz in a plus 0.1%. But that doesn't, that's so far within the margin of errors of the polls, it doesn't kind of necessarily mean anything. The only thing that is, I think, significant about that is the direction, right? It's the momentum move. You've seen kind of like Oz consistently go up in the polls and Fetterman kind of losing ground. And that's a real problem. Fetterman is clearly the better candidate here. Fetterman is clearly everything from experience to his agenda to his record. Now, look, there may be people who kind of like aren't huge fans of everything John Fetterman does, but like, damn it, people. you know, it's like, it's not about finding the perfect person. I mean, it's fine. I mean, look, John Fetterman in the U.S. Senate, it would be better than any like PA senator we've had in ages, right? And matter of fact, better than most senators that are currently in office, Democrats included. So, like, if it's not, we're not making wishes here. We're kind of like, this is about, at the very least, it's about a politics of defense. Is we need to defend the backsliding. I mean, we need to defend what's left of women's rights. We need to defend the protections of our LGBTQ youth. We need to protect and defend our public schools. Like, I mean, I could just go on and on and on and on. And the fact that there's enough people that are even looking at Oz and just being like, yeah, I think we should vote for this guy. It's just nuts. The guy doesn't live in the state, and like he's whatever. But that's a real concern. Now, one of the pieces of good news in some of those polls is that Josh Shapiro seems to be still holding on to his significant lead against Mastriano. When Shapiro looks again, RCP average has got Shapiro at 9.8% lead. But again, Mastriano has not been running a traditional campaign. I've seen the images of Mastriano events that are kind of really underattended. But I can tell you this, kind of not far from where I live, there was just a big, what amounted to kind of an impromptu rally, right? Hundreds of people rallying out there in God, I'm forgetting I want to say it's in the Harleysville area, things like this, but hundreds of people showing up, turning out in support of Mastriano, signs, all this other kinds of stuff. I mean, there is these are people who just believe, right? These are people who have turned politics into a religion and religion into politics. And so they are true believers. You're not swaying them, and they're motivated, right? Especially after they're able to see Roe v. Wade fall. Now they're like, oh, we can do this. All those things that we thought were just going to be pipe dreams, we actually can have these things. We can actually do this. And so we're going to go out and we're going to get this guy elected. And again, I can see the polls as good as the next guy, but do I trust at all that that 9.8% lead that's showing up in the Real Clear Politics poll average? Can I trust that 9.8%? Hell no. You know what image keeps on coming back in my mind? I mean, many of you are going to remember it. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. Back in 2016, the race was getting tighter between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And all the kind of forecasters were out there saying, oh, Hillary Clinton's going to lead by, going to win by, 6 points, by 10 points, by 7 points, whatever it might be. A couple states it'll be a little closer, but no, she's got it. And then you saw that little dial, right? Kind of the New York Times dial. It's got that, it had that, chances of victory. And you had that needle was all over in the Clinton camp, up until late. And the polls closed. Yep, still Clinton, right? Many people went to bed because they're like, oh, the New York Times said this, or, Real Clear Politics said this, or the projection on the Washington Post page said this, or the 538 projection looked like this. And then votes started coming in, and more gets counted. And then suddenly that needle started to kind of edge back. And we know the story. And then by later that night, Trump had won the election. So I'm looking at that 9.8% lead, right? And I'm not comfortable with it. I mean, that's why we got this kind of get out the vote thing going on here. That's all we got left to do is get there. You know, I mean, part of what I'm going to be doing all day tomorrow is making sure that everybody, regardless of political party, gets their right to vote, right, and gets access to that, and is treated fairly within their polling place and so on. Other folks are kind of making sure that people get rides to the polls, right? Making sure, checking with their neighbor, hey, did you vote? Right? Making sure you get out there, right? Because, this really is, in Pennsylvania, if you get Mastriano elected governor here, we're really screwed. So there we have it. So I don't know how you all feeling. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm tired. I got to get up early tomorrow. I'm just like thinking about this. I was just reading this thing right before it kind of went on air. Lancaster County stands by a decision over curing ballots ahead of the election day. And this is Lancaster County Board of Elections is standing by its decision to bar elections office staff from telling voters whether they have made clerical errors on their mail-in ballots. The Pennsylvania Department of State acknowledges the practice of ballot curing, by which county officials work with voters to identify and fix clerical errors that would prevent a ballot from being counted, is optional for counties. Some counties are notifying voters of these errors, such as forgetting to date and sign the ballot envelope, or to make sure that no one who attempts to vote is disenfranchised on a technicality, right? So, differences in based on county. Doug Mastriano was on with Steve Bannon today, right? Basically out there saying, look, Democrats are already trying to steal the election. That's already happening, right? It has been happening. We saw last week, I think it was Montgomeryville Democrats kind of tweeted out this, and now we're seeing this happen all over the place. That there were these weird flyers that started showing up that were encouraging supporters, Republicans, especially conservative Republicans, to show up late in the day to vote, as late as possible. Right. And it was kind of a little head scratching, right? It's like, why do you want your voters to go late? Right. And especially the message, like, to most, like, I don't know, people who are not swept up in the kind of right-wing media machine. For most of us, that is, when you say, like, oh, no, they're trying to steal the election, so go vote late in the day. Like, your first reaction is, well, wait a minute. If you want to make sure your vote is counted, why don't you go early to make sure that, you're there on time and all that kind of stuff? No. What these folks are trying to do is jam the polling places at the end of the day to turn it into scenes of chaos that will help reinforce a narrative that there's something wrong with our elections and someone's trying to steal it or somebody's trying to do something wrong. Right? It's about creating the image that fits the narrative. I talked about this on a show a couple of weeks ago, and it's, when that first broke, and now we're seeing this is kind of, turns out it is an absolute strategy. So here we go. Oh boy. Here. This is worth it a little bit. So Stephen Caruso posted a thread today. He said, a thread on election eve that I've been meaning to pigeonhole into a story, but alas, look for Pennsylvania Republicans to draw a line between voter fraud and illegal voting. Okay. And he says the former is what we heard a lot about in 2020. That's the voter fraud, which that was all false, he says. The specter of dead people voting, of invented mail-in ballots getting cast by the dead of night, cast in the dead of night by imaginary voters to swing results against Trump. That was that one. It's garbage, and most mainstream Republicans will even acknowledge that. But the term illegal voting may get more play, or heavy use of illegal to demean how certain places, such as Philadelphia, run things could be common in 2022. So here was House Republican election guru Seth Grove on October 26th, for instance. Seth Grove said, accurate, except in Philly, they run illegal elections. Caruso also said that in a July presser, he responded to a reporter asking about the voter fraud by saying the problem is the narrative is just fraud. Illegal voting is illegal voting. Grove defined the two, quote, illegal votes are votes that are in violation of the law. It is illegal. Committing murder is illegal, right? It's a violation of the law. And he mentioned dropping off 2 mail-in ballots at a drop box as an example, right? And he goes on. It's a really good thread. I mean, check him out. Stephen Caruso, if you want to follow him, it's at Stephen J _Caruso. That's Stephen J _Caruso. And, you know, he is a reporter for Spotlight PA. And does great work over there. And, you know, tracking the narrative. I mean, it's really good to see that kind of reporting where somebody's tracking the narrative and seeing, like, this is kind of what we're likely to see and this is how it's going to get set up. But, you know, there's that big gap between the folks that are kind of tapped in at that level and what kind of most people are going to see. So I have to say that, you know, I had an interaction with you know, as a volunteer for the Board of Elections. And, you know, just a guy who's, my guess was he's retired. I don't know if he was retired, but, you know, he was kind of the age where, you know, he could be retired, I would suppose. And he just kind of like pitching in. And, you know, hope everything goes well. You know, I was saying, you know, hope everything goes well on election day. And, you know, and he said it. He's like, and I have no idea if this guy's a Democrat or Republican, independent or whatever it means. It's like, but he's a person who's out there just trying to do, you know, help out. And he says, the most important thing is just that everybody is just going to be able to kind of, you know, vote for who they want to without running into a whole bunch of problems. And that's the best we can hope for. I'm like, yep. And I've said this before, I just, you know, I'm lucky that in my polling place, I end up working with a bunch of folks that are just fantastic. And are all, you know, I think it would be a stretch to say that everybody that works together is on the same, like, you know, political page. I would seriously doubt it. But the fact that I don't know that for sure, that's the important thing, right? Everybody that I work with at that polling place is just wanting to make sure that a good job gets done, right? And like, we can only hope so. I don't know. Yes, Emily says that she's voting in person tomorrow, but heard that the mail-in ballot is a hard-to-find place to date the ballot. Yeah, there's been even some kind of tutorial videos on like TikTok and YouTube and on even Twitter showing people like where exactly the line is to sign the ballot. It's I just really can't believe it that this is where we are sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like looking for ways to restrict or not count somebody's vote. And yes, I know this has always been like this, and there's always been this, and this is one of the histories of this country. I get it. But it's like, man, how debased that's what people spend their time on and get paid good money to do. You know? Anyways, I'm gonna do what I can. I hope you're gonna do what you can tomorrow. I know people have been pushing themselves to the brinks of exhaustion to get out there for the candidates and doing what they can, whether it's writing postcards or door knocking or phone calling or volunteer to send people out to the polls or to be at the polls on election day for particular candidates. All I know is that I'm looking forward to I'm fingers crossed a decent day tomorrow. I hope that in whatever little way that you can, that you get out there and encourage other folks to get out there and vote too as well, and tell them why it's so critical that we kind of elect John Fetterman, that we elect Josh Shapiro, that we elect Gwen Stoltz, that we elect Jim Miller, that we elect Mark Pinsley, that's just kind of like in my immediate area, and I've been so kind of dug into like super local stuff that's what I'm like paying attention to so much these days. Ashley Ehas, I'm sorry, Ashley Ehas, make sure that she's elected in the PA first. That gives me hope. It gives me hope. But the one thing I'll say tonight, folks, is I'm going to cut this a little bit earlier tonight because I do have to get up super, super early in the morning. I did not want to let another week go by. It's been a really kind of chaotic few weeks with the podcast, and I'm really sorry about that. It's just been between Halloween coming on a Monday and then me getting sick and then being out of town on a day. It was a really I never felt like I got my rhythm over the past several weeks. And I have to say this too as well, once the election is cleared out, we're going to be turning back to some other issues that we just haven't been able to cover, given how important this election is, and it's required to we just have to pay attention to what's going on in the election. But I just got cued into a story about what's happening out in Penn West. That's 3 of the universities, the state system of higher education universities, that were consolidated. That was Clarion, California, and Edinburgh, that were kind of like consolidated into one. Under all these promises about what's going to happen and so on, all these reassurances and that you're kind of being extreme. Nope. Right. They're out there kind of gutting faculty, or preparing to kind of gut faculty, eliminating classes, eliminating access to classes, despite the fact the Chancellor of the State System of Higher Education has said that the goal is to expand offerings, make it kind of more opportunities for students. Nope, they're eliminating those opportunities for students as we speak, which is, anybody who's been in the state system of higher education for long enough knows that when they tell you these things that they're trying to help out, they're ultimately just doing the same old thing under a different name, and they're pulling austerity measures. And that's exactly what they're doing. So we're going to get back to some of that stuff. We definitely have to start looking at bring back some more folks on to talk about what's going on with the climate, both locally and kind of internationally. Of course, there's the COP27 just got underway in Egypt over the weekend, and it's pretty dire. If you need like yet another reason why you should get out to vote, and making sure other people get out to vote tomorrow and elect Democrats to the thing, and not because Democrats are going to save us all. It's because Republicans are going to kill us. Right? Like literally the policies the Republicans are bringing are going to kind of turn half the population into second-class citizens, put anybody who's not kind of white Christian and kind of male or male aligned, is going to put their lives in more jeopardy and more danger. We've got to get these folks elected. I don't know what else you can say other than here we go. And then and then we'll do a little bit of stuff on Friday. We're gonna, do a kind of post-mortem, so to speak, to see where we are. There may be races that are still have not been called on Friday, given that there's a lot of races that are pretty close. We'll do a little kind of, at least a snapshot analysis at that point. Probably get somebody on in the next week or so to give some of their analysis of what took place in this election and what we need to be thinking about moving forward. And then let's start turning back to some of the issues of what's going on: the continued assault on labor, the continued assault on kind of women's rights and kind of equal citizenship, the continued rise of white supremacy, the continued assault on multiracial democracy and kind of open public education. I mean, it's nonstop, folks. It's nonstop, but lots at stake. It's Election Day Eve. What I can wish you tonight is all the best for tomorrow. May you be safe. May things go off without a hitch. If you're out there helping folks out, all kudos goes to you. I look forward to seeing some folks myself tomorrow at the polls. I wish you all the best, and I'm going to hold out the hope tonight. I'm going to hold out the hope that we're going to stave off the rising fascism that is infecting kind of our state and our region. So there you have it. But for now, I'm going to walk my dog and call it an early night, since I'll be getting up at the nice hour of 4 a.m. tomorrow morning to get ready for my day. So thank you, Emily. Hope all goes well for you tomorrow too as well. And for everybody out there who's put in the work, who's put in the kind of countless hours, the thankless time, and all the effort behind candidates to get them elected this year. Thank you for all your work. It's impressive, and it's the one thing that's kept hope alive for so many of us, kind of all over the place. Anyway, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. You can help support this show by heading over to patreon.com/rcpress. You can help even more by liking the stream for this show, sharing it with your friends. But the most important thing that you do right now is just get out the vote, get out there and help in any way that you can tomorrow to make sure that that we win. All right, this is Kevin Mahoney, creator and founder of Raging Chicken. We'll have more to say. Whoa, that's not what I wanted. We'll have more and more to say when it comes to this Friday on a little post-mortem of the election. And until then, here we go, everybody. Cheers.
Let me try my
See ya.
people call.